Hello, welcome back to Salute Your Shorts 2020. My name is Kyle Grandis. I was in Salute Your Shorts 2019, won documentary runner-up. And for some reason, that means they asked me to help, and I love it. We're joined today with the creators of just an amazing film. Can you guys introduce yourselves in your film and like tell your roles in the film?
Nicole, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I'm Nicole Golewski, and I'm producer of 6th of June. Should we just do that, and then we can talk about the film?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Okay.
So next.
Rylan Soroff, producer of 6th of June.
Cool. And Patrick Ginnity, cinematographer, and I edited with Henry as well.
All right. And then like a brief synopsis, I guess, and then we'll go into questions.
Nicole, you want to lead again?
Yeah, sure. 6th of June is a look at the D-Day commemorations in Sainte-Mère-Église, France, and the way that the French remember D-Day and the lack of remembrance here in America. And so it really looks at kind of the amazing things that happen in Sainte-Mère-Église, as well as with interviews with some of the most incredible people, Susan Eisenhower, Helen Patton, Keith Nightingale, that take us through that. And then it's really a look at why it's important to remember and what happens if we forget.
Yeah. So like, how did this project come together?
Rylan, go for it.
Rylan.
Yeah, I guess it's there's a long version of the story, but I'll give you the short version of the story.
Any story any road you want to take, I'm happy.
Yeah. Actually, my mom has been going over to Normandy for a long time, and put together a nonprofit trying to rekindle the relationship between the town I grew up in and Sainte-Mère-Église. And she took Henry over there because she was interested in having him just understand the history and see what was going on. And so when we went over,
Henry's a Roosevelt, sorry, just to throw that out there.
Yeah. Henry hates when we do that, but so she wanted to have Henry come over there, and he did. And his last name got a lot of attention, and he was trying to figure out, how can I give back to this place that keeps this memory alive and does something that's so amazing. And so he was trying to figure out what to do. And so we decided that we were going to go over and shoot this film. And so it actually started just initially supposed to be a short profile piece on Keith Nightingale. And then as we got over there, we realized that this was a really critical moment in this history where it was coming up to the 75th anniversary of D-Day. And at the next major anniversary, when D-Day and this history is getting a lot of attention, or a significant portion of the veterans would no longer be able to attend. And so we were looking at that moment and saying, well, what is the importance of people coming over and remembering this history? And how do we capture that and sort of translate that in the moment so that, one, people can be educated about this history, and then two, looking forward, what are the lessons that we learn that are important to this current moment that we're in? And so that's really the sort of genesis and the inspiration for the piece.
How long did it take you to film it, and how much travel was involved?
Pat.
Yeah, so it initially started out, like Rylan said, planning to be this short profile piece on Keith Nightingale, and that leg of the film was about a week. And then we came back home, we started looking through the footage, and then we realized that we needed to go back again to get some more. After editing for about, I think it was like 8 months, we were kind of cutting it together. So then we went back, got some pickup shots, and myself and Henry in the edit got very involved in the particulars, and very, we were very OCD with the cuts and how we wanted it to be. So it took potentially maybe longer than it should have. But we worked on it for about 2 years from start to finish.
Wow.
Attention to
so
detail.
yeah, Yeah, that's a long amount of time to spend on a 15-minute film, but yeah,
Yeah, but it
we
really showed, like, it shows, like,
appreciate it.
how much each edit meant to you, each cut, and it was beautifully shot, Patrick, by the way. It was just
Thank you.
so pretty. So many beautiful angles that I just was marveling over. So I really commend that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, we felt, there's just a lot of responsibility with this story. So, it's something you can't rush. You need to do it right. You only got one shot, because especially, considering that a lot of these guys aren't going to be here much longer. We actually, some of the men in the film have since passed away, just within the short amount of time of us, pushing it out to festivals. So it was definitely important to do it right.
There's a huge sense of community in the film, and I'm assuming they were welcoming you with open arms, but how was it kind of just being a fly on the wall to that community of veterans? Like, yeah.
Nicole, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting just in the genesis too, like as a profile of Keith Nightingale, I know that Henry was just so profoundly impacted when he went the first time, that we'd been working together for a long time. And so when he got me involved, he was like, you have to come over to see this community, this group of people, what you're doing. He said that to all of us and sold all of us on doing it. And especially Pat roping him into doing a lot of work for just a little bit of McDonald's. So it was like, so I think that was really surprising. I mean, not to just completely stereotype the French, but it's not exactly like you go to Paris and they're like, oh my God, Americans, it's very not like that. Whereas Normandy, it truly is, we say it in the film, but there's more American flags flown there than anywhere in the US at any given time. People raise American flags at their homes in Normandy, France. And it was a really interesting experience for that, because I'd been to Paris a few times and received just the opposite. And then, but also just the overall community. So it's people from all over the world that come here during this week. And I think we all just had our own profoundly moving experiences where we all ended up in tears at different points, where we're talking with people that are archivists and people that go and they dig up lots of things that are still in the ground there from World War II, and from Belgium and Norway and everywhere in Europe, and yeah, it was amazing.
Hold on one second. Lost my place. The film talks a lot about Americans and how it doesn't seem like we are as close to the subject as they are in Normandy and all that. Like, we're not learning it in school as much and all that. Do you guys find that to be true? Like, is that how you entered in, thinking you weren't learning about this beforehand?
Yeah, I mean, I think growing up, I think I was sort of naturally drawn to World War II and World War II history. And so maybe I think personally I paid more attention, but just hearing stories from, folks like Susan Eisenhower, who, have taught in high schools and taught in university, and just seeing the stories that they were telling, and then talking about the film, other people were agreeing with that perspective that they shared, that, people aren't being taught this history. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's first and foremost, it's a shame, because it's important. And, but it was interesting going over, and I think, so many people gather, like Nicole was just saying, in Sainte-Mère-Église and in Normandy every year to celebrate this or commemorate this history. And, they come from everywhere, and it's this really interesting melting pot. And I think there is something significant and interesting about, they talk about the terroir in France, and, the fact that it happened there and being able to go to the place, I think sort of brings a different significance. And I know that, even with my own personal interest in the subject, when I went to Normandy the first time, I was completely blown away. And I think things resonate in a different way. And so I think, the commemoration ceremonies that happen over there are significant and important, because they translate in a different way, by actually going to the place and visiting. And so I think being able to keep that memory alive in the place where it happened is significant in, people really understanding and not just, knowing the facts about the history, but also digesting it in a meaningful way. And so I think you kind of need both sides, where it's people are being taught in schools, and then the actual physical location is preserved, and those type of ceremonies continue.
I noticed on all your IMBD pages that you like to work together a lot. If there's something to this crew that we all don't know about, was like, how is working together? Is this like your preferred group? Because all filmmakers kind of have them,
It's definitely a family.
Yeah.
In all the ways.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think Rylan wins in terms of who was friends with Henry first. Maybe he could speak about the two of them went to high school together. Myself and Henry met. We were both production assistants, working at the time. I was working at Law and Order SVU, and so we started. Yeah, we started making. On the weekends after we were done with a week of doing 14-hour days, we would shoot short films. And then after that, maybe a couple of years later, Nicole linked up with Henry through a project. So, and then we've all worked together on multiple things as well. So yeah, it's been a while that we've all known each other. Yeah.
That's really cool. Cause like I went to film school. So it's like, that's the hope of entering film school, is like finding your people that you're going to make movies with the whole time, like your whole life basically. And
yeah,
you guys kind of found. So
yeah, this is the best team.
So right now during like quarantine, I find that creativity is a muscle that needs to be stretched and worked. How important do you find that is to be true about creativity?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that that's absolutely a muscle that needs to be stretched. I mean, Pat is one brave filmmaker. So Pat's actually been out there. I don't know, Pat, how much you can talk about the project, but it's incredible what Pat's been doing. And I've been writing, and I know Rylan has too. So Rylan and I we have our own production companies as well. And so we were actually able to pitch a few shows that and things that got picked up by some major distributors during the quarantine, which is like kind of unheard of and really amazing. So yeah, but Pat's the one that's been actually out there with some incredible work. I don't know if you can talk about it just a little.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I've been when quarantine first started, I was going out and just taking pictures of the neighborhood and the state it was in. I guess we talked about this before we started recording, but yeah, so I live in Queens, specifically very close to Corona, which is an area that was hit pretty hard. And then after just taking street photography photos, I started working with another filmmaker on a funeral home in Elmhurst, Queens, that it was, throughout the whole pandemic, struggling to keep up with the numbers coming in. So yeah, so I've been busy. But yeah, I guess back to your question though, it's, staying busy is, I think, a huge key to staying sane during this time. Very, very tough time. You gotta do something.
Not to get too philosophical, but I read this quote recently, and it was something along the lines of being put in a box satisfies a basic human desire or need or something like that. And I think that there is something interesting about being, what creativity unbridled can be overwhelming. And I think sometimes if you get put in a box or there's certain parameters, it can be helpful in that you have to navigate around those challenges and navigate around that box in order to do something. And I think it's going to be interesting to see the box that Corona has put us in and how it challenges filmmakers both to think creatively about how to make films and then through the execution of it. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, it is really interesting to think about, because like now I'm thinking about a box and like how if you put a creative person in there, can you imagine how beautiful that box would be by the time you can take it out?
Yeah.
And, like it would be just filled of magic, basically.
Yeah. So hopefully all of this leads to flourishing creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just not on topic, but it's one of my favorite questions to ask creators. What movie made you want to make movies? It's a hard one, but
Native
it's
Boy.
usually a good one. What did you say?
I'm kind of joking. It was Henry's first film.
I think initially when I was a kid,
Yeah.
there was like a summer of 1996 where like Broken Arrow, The Rock, Face Off, and Con Air all came out. All these big action movies, and that's what initially got me in, and very excited about film. But then it changed, as I grew up as a person, and I would say more recently, like films that now mean the same to me when I was a kid in 1996 are. I just finished watching Immigration Nation, which was incredible, series on Netflix, and before that, Honeyland was another one that was like a gut punch that really made me, excited to be in this line of work. The fact that you could create something that powerful is exciting to me.
Nicole, do you have an answer?
Yeah, this is going to be a strange answer. I didn't know that making movies was possible. Like, I just didn't know any filmmakers. I didn't know any directors at the time that I started. And like, for me, it just wasn't like, oh, that's a thing you can do. And so I remember going to my first film festival, which is Aspen Film Festival, when I was in my early 20s. And I saw this movie and it was about LeBron, but it was like a guy that had been following LeBron's trajectory, like from high school, that was from the same small town and all of that. And I cannot remember the name of it, but I remember sitting in this theater and then watching him do the Q&A. And I was like, oh, like, this is something you can do. This is something people can do. So I'd always thought about like writing and different things like that. And I always was drawn to storytelling and wanted to do that. But I think that once I went to my first film festival and saw it, that like, oh, these are real people out there that are actually doing these things. I know that sounds maybe silly, but it just never had that kind of profound effect on me. I was like, oh, I'm a real person. I can do this too. So I think it was like after that movie, I was like, what would it be like if I started re-envisioning the way that I wanted to tell stories, but in movies instead? And that kind of sent me down a path of film festivals and making movies.
I mean, I guess I was kind of making a joke, but I was a bit serious too. I think so. My career actually started in the music business, and I was working between music and film, but on the music side. And so, kind of similar to Nicole, I never really thought about, oh, like people make films, and that's something you can do. And as Pat said earlier, Henry was one of my best friends from high school. And when I saw him making movies and what he was making, I was sort of blown away by how good it was at that age. I was like, oh my God, my friends can make this? Like, this is beautiful. Like, he's talented. And so my entree was sort of, in part, I was just interested in like helping my friend, which was like, how can I help my friend get whatever it is that he's doing done, in whether it's an official capacity or a friend capacity. And then that sort of evolved into me realizing, I was interested in telling stories, and what are the stories that I was interested in telling. And because of the group of friends that I had, like Pat and Nicole and Henry, I had the ability to tell that story in the film medium. And so it was sort of the opportunity to be able to take advantage of that community of people and that network of people that I had who were, interested in the same thing and talented at doing it. And so I think I evolved sort of into it through that sort of pathway.
That's awesome. No, I like that. It's similar to me as well. My dad built sets for TV commercials, but every once in a while he gets a movie job, and he worked on Adventures to Babysitting, and I was super young, but I remember Yeah, I remember watching the movie and be like, oh, my dad was there. Like, these people aren't acting on my teeth, like, for me. My dad was there building something. So, like, movie making is a thing. Like, that's what opened the eyes for me. So, I like that we all kind of had that aha moment. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. It was a wonderful film. It's just beautiful. Thank you for sharing it with us. And it was a pleasure to get to know you guys.